The town of Dry Hollow had a way of measuring men before they ever spoke. It did it with silence, with eyes that lingered a second too long, with the scrape of a chair pulled back slow, just to see if a stranger would flinch. When the cowboy rode in, the noon bell had just finished ringing. Its echo drifted off toward the salt flats, thin and lonely, like most things that left this place. He sat easy in the saddle, shoulders slightly rounded, hat brim pulled low. His horse was a tired bay, ribs faint beneath its hide, hoofs caked with pale dust. Nothing about the man announced trouble. No carved grips on his revolver, no fresh scars on his face, just a quiet figure, sun-worn and lean, moving as though he had learned long ago not to waste effort. A few men outside the mercantile paused their talk. One spat into the dirt. Another smiled without warmth. Looks like the wind dragged in. Another one. Someone muttered. The cowboy dismounted near the trough, looping the reins with care. He rubbed the horse's neck once, a small, absent gesture, then turned toward the street. His boots were cracked at the toes. His coat had been patched twice at the elbow. When he walked, there was no hurry in him, no stiffness either, just a steady, unremarkable pace. Inside the saloon, the air was darker and cooler, thick with sour whiskey and old smoke. A piano clinked half-heartedly in the corner. The player, watching the door more than the keys. The bartender, a broad man with tired eyes, set down a glass and waited. The cowboy took a stool at the far end. He removed his hat and rested it on his knee. His hair was dark with a hint of rust, cut short by necessity, not style. When he spoke, his voice was low, even. Water, he said, after a beat. If you've got coffee left from the morning. A pause. Then the bartender nodded and poured. The cowboy drank slowly. He noticed things without staring. The way two men near the card table leaned together when he entered, the way a woman at the far wall clutched her shawl tighter as if the room had cooled. He did not reach for his gun. He did not scan for exits. That, more than anything, marked him as weak in a place like Dry Hollow. A chair scraped behind him. Well, I'll be, said a voice thick with amusement. You look lost, friend. The cowboy turned his head just enough to acknowledge the speaker. A big man stood there, shoulders like a fence post, knuckles scarred and red. His vest was new. His smile wasn't just passing through. The cowboy said. The big man chuckled. Ain't we all? Question is, how long folks last? The cowboy said nothing. Took another drink. The silence stretched. Someone laughed too loud. The piano stopped. The big man leaned closer, breath heavy with liquor. Town's got rules, he said. Men who stay, they pull their weight. The cowboy finally looked at him then. His eyes were pale, the color of sky before a storm, and tired in a way that went beyond sleep. I don't aim to stay, he said. That seemed to disappoint the man. Disappointment curdled fast. Shame. The man said. We could use the help. The cowboy slid a coin across the bar, stood, and settled his hat back on his head. For a moment, the room held its breath. Outside, the sun had climbed higher. Heat shimmered off the hard-packed earth. Across the street, a small figure sat on the steps of the church barefoot, knees drawn up, dust streaking her dress. A girl, maybe 10, watching the world with eyes too old for her face. The cowboy paused when he saw her. She did not look away. A woman emerged from the church then, thin and pale, her hair pinned tight. She placed a hand on the girl's shoulder, protective, weary. Come on, Leela. The woman murmured. The girl didn't move right away. Her gaze stayed on the cowboy, curious, measuring, like the town had measured him. A shout broke the moment. Laughter followed. The big man from the saloon stepped out into the street, joined by two others. They watched the cowboy with open interest. Now, no longer hiding it. Hey, one called. You ridden alone out there? The cowboy met their eyes. For the first time, something tightened in his jaw. Been doing it a long time, he said. The men laughed. The sound carried, sharp and mean, across the way. The girl's fingers curled into the hem of her dress. The woman drew her closer. The cowboy turned back to his horse. He knew that laugh, knew what followed it. He could leave. That was the sensible thing, the safe thing. But as he lifted his foot toward the stirrup, the wind shifted, carrying the faint sound of a child's cough from the church steps. He paused, hand resting on worn leather, the weight of old choices settling on his shoulders once more. He stayed longer than he meant to. The horse drank slow,
water spilling from its mouth and darkening the dirt. The cowboy stood with one hand on the reins, the other resting near his belt, not on the gun, just close enough to remember it was. There he watched the reflection in the trough, his face rippling in the water, lines drawn by sun and years, eyes that had seen too many endings, asterisk behind him. The town went on pretending not to watch. Asterisk the woman from the church lingered near the doorway now, her back straight with effort. Up close she looked younger than he'd thought, but grief had put years on her. When she met his gaze, she nodded once, not a greeting, more like acknowledgement, as if she, too, understood the way choices stacked up until they bent a man's spine. Asterisk you ain't from here, she said finally. Asterisk no, ma'am. Asterisk her voice was quiet, careful. Then you should keep going. Asterisk he gave a faint smile. That your advice to everyone. Asterisk only the ones who look like they can still take it. Asterisk the girl Lila had crept a little closer. She stared at the horse's legs, the dust on the man's boots, the worn edge of his coat. Children saw details adults learned to ignore. Asterisk, what's your name? She asked. Before the woman could stop her, asterisk the cowboy hesitated. Names had weight, they stuck. Asterisk Eli, he said at last. It was not the name he'd been born with, but it had served him well enough. Asterisk I'm Lila, she said, proud. That's my mama. Asterisk the woman's mouth tightened at the word, but she did not correct her. Asterisk I'm Mara, she said. Asterisk from the saloon came the sound of a bottle breaking. A cheer went up. Asterisk Mara followed Ellie's glance. Her eyes darkened. They get loud when they're bored, she said. And they've been bored a long while. Asterisk Eli nodded. He'd seen towns like this bloom and rot on the same stem. A place where men learned to take because no one was left to stop them. Asterisk what happened to the law? He asked. Asterisk Mara laughed softly, without humor. He left. Asterisk that was all she said. It was enough. Asterisk a shadow crossed the street as a cloud passed over the sun. The heat eased for a breath, then returned. Asterisk you got family? Eli asked Lila, his eyes still on the saloon door. Asterisk she shook her head. Just mama. Asterisk Mara's hand tightened on the girl's shoulder. And the church, she said, though it sounded like she was trying to convince herself. Asterisk Eli considered the road stretching west, considered the way trouble followed him whether he invited it or not. He had sworn, after the last time, that he would stop answering calls that weren't his. Asterisk but this wasn't a call. It was just a place, and a look in a child's eyes. Asterisk you got a place to sleep? Mara asked him. Asterisk I can make do outside town. Asterisk she studied him for a long moment, then, quietly, there's a shed behind the church. Roof don't leak much. Asterisk it was an offer, not charity. A test. Asterisk thank you. Eli said. Asterisk that night, the wind came in low from the flats, carrying sand that hissed against wood and stone. The shed smelled of old hay and mouse droppings. Eli rolled out his blanket and lay awake, listening. Asterisk from the saloon came laughter, then shouting. A woman screamed once short, sharp, then went silent. Asterisk Eli closed his eyes. Asterisk he saw another town, another scream. A door he hadn't opened fast enough. Asterisk his hand curled into the blanket. Asterisk footsteps approached the shed. Light flickered through the cracks. Asterisk Eli. Came Mara's voice, hushed. I know you're awake. Asterisk he rose and opened the door. She stood there wrapped in a shawl, Lila behind her, eyes wide. Asterisk they're comin', Mara said. Not for you, for us. Asterisk Eli felt the weight settle fully now, the old, familiar pull between leaving and staying, between surviving and standing. Asterisk how many? He asked. Asterisk 3, maybe 4, drunk. Asterisk Lila's fingers dug into her mother's arm. Asterisk Eli nodded once. Get her inside. Lock the door. Asterisk Mara searched his face. You don't have to. Asterisk I know, he said. Asterisk she hesitated, then did as he said. Asterisk Eli stepped out into the dark. The moon hung thin and pale, like a blade. Asterisk he adjusted his coat, checked the cylinder of his revolver, not lovingly, not eagerly, just as a man checked a tool he wished he didn't need. Asterisk voices drifted closer, sloppy and loud. Asterisk easy, Eli murmured to himself. Easy now. Asterisk he moved toward the church, shadows swallowing him as the men rounded the corner, unaware of the line they were about to cross. They came down the street like they owned it, boots thudding, laughter spilling ahead of them. One carried a lantern that swung wide, throwing long, crooked shadows across the church wall. Another dragged his fingers along the fence posts, making the wire sing. Asterisk Eli stayed still, pressed into the darker seam where the church met the night. He felt the rough grain of the wood against his shoulder, smelled old pine and dust. He slowed his breathing the way he had learned long ago, until the world narrowed to sound and motion. Quiet now. One of them slurred. Preachers. Asleep. The big man, was there the one from the saloon? He walked with the careless confidence of someone who had never been stopped. Ain't here for him, he said. Girl's got a pretty face. Shame to waste it in prayer. The lantern light bobbed closer. Eli could see the shine of sweat on their necks, the slack hunger in their eyes. He waited until they were almost past him. Evening, he said. They jumped, hands flying to belts, curses filling the air. The lantern swung hard, light flaring across Ellie's face. The big man squinted. You, he said. Surprised, then amused. Well, I'll be damned. Thought you rode out. Changed my mind, Eli said. One of the others laughed. You, lost, friend. Eli stepped into the light now. He did not reach for his gun. He held his hands loose at his sides, palms open. This don't concern me, he said. Turn around. Go back to your drinks. The big man's smile faded. Just a little. It concerns whoever's standing in the way. Behind them. The church door creaked. Eli felt it more than heard it. Someone inside shifting, holding breath. You're drunk, Eli said. And you're bored. That don't end well. The lantern swung again. Closer this time. You talk too much, the big man said. He took a step forward. And you ain't got the look of a man worth listening to. The first punch came fast, clumsy but heavy. Eli moved before he thought. Yours taking over. He slipped to the side, caught the man's wrist, twisted. There was a sharp cry as the lantern fell. Glass shattering, flame dying in the dirt. Darkness. Swallowed them. Someone rushed him. Eli felt a blow glance off his shoulder. He drove his elbow back, felt it connect with ribs. Air whooshed out of a body. Another shape lunged, knife flashing pale in the moonlight. Ellie's hand closed around. His revolver then not raised, not fired, just held. I promised. Enough, he said. They hesitated, not because of the gun alone, because of the way he stood now, balanced, calm, eyes clear, not weak. Never that. The big man spat. You think you scare us? No, Eli said. I think you're scared already. The knife wavered. A shout echoed from the saloon, distant but growing. Someone had heard the commotion. The big man cursed. Get him. The knife came in low. Eli moved, pain blooming along his side as steel kissed flesh. He grunted, brought the revolver up not to fire, but to strike. The butt cracked against a jaw, teeth scattered like dice. A shot rang out anyway, wild, deafening. Not Ellie's. The sound tore through the night, through the town. Windows flared with light. Dogs barked. The men froze. Eli stood there, blood warm against his ribs. Revolver smoking now where it had discharged into the ground during the struggle. He hadn't meant to fire. It didn't matter. The big man backed away, eyes wide. You're dead, he said, voice shaking. You hear me? Dead. They ran then, boots pounding, leaving curses and blood behind. Eli leaned against the church wall, breath coming hard. He pressed a hand to his side, felt the wetness, not deep, he'd had worse. The church door opened. Mara stepped out, Leela behind her. The girl's eyes were huge, reflecting the moon. You're hurt, Mara said. I'll manage. She tore a strip from her shawl without asking, knelt, and pressed it to his side. Her hands were steady, practiced in small emergencies. You should leave, she said quietly. Now. Eli looked down at Leela. The girl stared back, unblinking. They won't stop, Mara went on. You made it worse. Eli nodded. I know. From the saloon. More men poured out now, drawn by the shot, voices rising, angry and curious. Eli straightened, pain flaring. He looked toward the road again, the dark ribbon leading away. Freedom lay that way, so did safety. Behind him. The church stood small and fragile against the night. Eli slid his revolver back into its holster. Get inside, he said. Barricade the door. Mara hesitated. And you? Eli turned toward the approaching voices, the weight of the coming storm settling in his chest. I ain't leavin', he said. The town had finally decided what kind of man he was. The men came in a knot, anger pulling them together tighter than loyalty ever could. Lanterns flared, guns glinted, boots crushed glass underfoot. Someone shouted Ellie's description as if the words themselves could pin him in place. He stood in the open now, the church at his back. Blood had soaked through his shirt, dark and sticky against his skin. He felt lightheaded, but he planted his feet anyway. The ground here was familiar enough. He'd chosen worse places to stand. Eli, Mara whispered from the doorway, panic threading her voice. He did not turn. The big man pushed to the front, jaw swollen, one eye already darkening. His grin was gone. What remained was something colder. You could have walked, he said. Now you'll be carried. Eli met his gaze. You still can. A murmur rippled through the group. Some shifted, uneasy. They had expected fear. They had expected pleading. The big man lifted his gun. Too late, before he could fire. A voice cut through the night. That's enough. It came from the far end of the street, not loud, not threatening, just firm. An old man stepped into the lantern light. His coat hung loose on his frame, star pinned crooked to his chest. A shotgun rested in the crook of his arm, not aimed, but ready. Sheriff, someone muttered. Surprised. The big man scoffed. Thought you left town. The sheriff's eyes flipped to Ellie's bloodied side, then to the church door. I did, he said. Then I heard a gunshot. The paws stretched, wind hissed through the dust. You know this man? The big man asked, jerking his chin toward Eli. No, the sheriff said. But I know you. That was the moment. Things might have tipped either way. A child coughed behind the door, soft, fragile. Eli felt something in his chest tighten more than the wound ever could. The big man's lip curled. You're outnumbered, old man. So are you, the sheriff said quietly. He nodded toward the darkened windows. One by one, shapes appeared, men with rifles, women holding lamps, faces drawn tight with something like shame. The town had been watching all along. Silence fell, heavy and thick. The big man looked around, calculating. For the first time, doubt crept into his eyes. This ain't over, he said. You hear me? Any of you? He lowered his gun, slowly, one by one. The others followed. They backed away, not running this time, but retreating, pride bleeding out into the dirt. When they were gone, the street sagged, as if it had been holding its breath too. Eli swayed. The world tilted. Strong hands caught him. Before he fell, the sheriff, up close, smelled of tobacco and old leather. You're stubborn, the old man said. Eli managed a tired smile. So I've been told. They laid him out on a pew inside the church. Candlelight flickered, throwing soft shadows across the walls. Mara worked quickly, cleaning the wound. Her jaw set. You didn't have to do this, she said. Though her hands were gentle. Eli watched Leela sitting in the front pew, feet swinging, eyes never leaving him. Maybe not, he said, but someone had to start. When the bleeding slowed, the sheriff pulled up a chair. You'll be safe tonight, he said. Tomorrow's another matter. Eli closed his eyes. He was so tired. Leela slipped down from the pew and came closer. She reached out, hesitant, then laid her small hand on his arm. Are you gonna leave? She asked. Eli opened his eyes and looked at her. The question hung between them, heavier than any threat outside. The wind died down. Dawn was still hours away. I don't know yet, he said, and for the first time in a long while, that felt like the truth. Morning came soft, like it was afraid to wake anyone. Asterisk lights slid through the church windows in pale bands, catching dust in the air and turning it gold. Eli lay still on the pew, listening to the slow rhythm of the town breathing again. His side ached, deep and dull, but the pain was clean now, honest. Asterisk he pushed himself upright with a quiet grunt. Asterisk Mara was asleep in the front row, her head bowed, hands folded tight even in rest. Leela lay curled beside her, a blanket pulled to her chin, one hand still clutching the edge of Ellie's coat as if she'd been afraid he might vanish in the night. Asterisk Eli gently eased the fabric from her fingers. Asterisk outside, the town looked different in daylight, less sharp, less cruel. Men stood in small groups, talking low. A broken bottle had been swept aside, blood scrubbed from the dirt, though a darker stain still lingered if you knew where to look. Asterisk the sheriff sat on the church steps, shotgun across his knees. Asterisk you're moving better than I expected, he said without looking up. Asterisk I've moved worse, Eli replied. Asterisk the old man nodded. They left before sunup, took what pride they had left with them. Asterisk Eli leaned against the doorway. They'll be back. Asterisk maybe, the sheriff said, but not the same way. Asterisk they sat in silence for a moment. Asterisk you never told me your real name, the sheriff said. Asterisk Eli smiled faintly. Didn't ask. Asterisk the sheriff glanced at him then. Town could use a man like you. Asterisk Eli shook his head. Town needs to learn to stand without one. Asterisk the sheriff considered that, then nodded. Asterisk inside. Leela stirred and sat up. When she saw Eli, her face lit in a way that made something twist behind his ribs. Asterisk you're still here, she said. Asterisk for now. Asterisk Mara rose, stiff and tired. She met his eyes, and in them he saw gratitude tangled with fear. Asterisk you saved us, she said. Asterisk Eli shook his head. No, you all saved yourselves. I just didn't step aside. Asterisk she studied him a long moment. Where will you go? Asterisk Eli looked west. The road waited like it always had. Asterisk I'll ride a bit, he said. See where it takes me. Asterisk Lila's mouth trembled. She swallowed hard. You're not weak, she said suddenly, fiercely. They were wrong. Asterisk Eli knelt in front of her, wincing. He met her gaze level. Being strong ain't about how hard you hit, he said. It's about what you won't let break. Asterisk she nodded as if she'd understand that someday. Asterisk he stood, gathered his things, and led his horse into the morning light. The town watched him go, not with hunger now, but something quieter. Respect, maybe, or the beginning of it. Asterisk Eli swung into the saddle, reins loose in his hands. He paused once, looking back at the small church, the woman and child standing in its shadow. Asterisk then he tipped his hat and turned toward the open land. Asterisk the dust rose behind him, slow and steady, as the town of Dry Hollow learned what it meant to choose courage over cruelty, and what it cost to mistake kindness for weakness.